Well, good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be back here, and it's always a pleasure to be here discussing a revolutionary way to approach health and vitality. For the last couple of centuries, and actually, I think forever and always, we seem to have approached health by looking at and trying to mitigate symptoms, which can be helpful, but rarely addresses the root of the problem. Redox is changing the entire paradigm of wellness. And if redox is a new term for you, you are in good company. Just know that redox is the energy that powers all life. Truly, nothing happens in our bodies, in our pets, even in plants, without a redox reaction. And so tonight, we were going to explore not only what redox is, but why it's so profound and why it may be of interest to you or to people you care about in your life. People explore this for a number of reasons, and many of you on here might be here for several of these reasons. I know when I looked into it, it was a number of different reasons. But one of the main reasons people look at it is because they have a health challenge, or maybe a loved one has a health challenge, and they're trying to see if this could be part of the solution, maybe the missing link. Others are looking at it because they want to be proactive with their health, stop anything from becoming a label, from their doctor. And some of you might be here because you've heard there's an athletic benefit to redox. And although you don't have to be a professional or Olympic athlete, there are many of those using this. It can benefit all of us. All of us could use more endurance, more mental focus, right? Recovering faster from just daily life. And so we're going to talk about that today as well. Another reason people are looking at this is for the anti-aging benefits. We're all 24 hours older today than we were yesterday. And what if we could find a way to kind of turn back the clock, not only on the physical signs of aging that we see when we look in the mirror, but even on the inside? As Dr. Hoffman says many, many times, the wrinkles that we see on the outside are simply a reflection of the wrinkles and oxidative stress and the breakdown on the inside. So what if there was a way to address that? And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight as well. And then sometimes, when there is something that is making your life better, that you're seeing some incredible results with, we want to share it with other people. We want to help our friends, our family members, people we love also live better. And so the other reason people look at this is because there is a cutting edge technology here that we're going to discuss that is different from anything you've ever seen. And it's impacting every single person who tries it. And with that comes an opportunity not just to maybe generate some additional income, but an opportunity to have an impact in this world beyond what you ever imagined. And if that is something that after tonight intrigues you or is of interest to you, talk to the person that invited you tonight. We don't have time to go into that aspect of it tonight. But on Saturday morning, Dr. Silverman does a presentation on this same Zoom. The first half hour, he'll talk about the product and answer questions. And then he will talk about what it is like to link arms with this amazing community of people and help make a difference in the world. So if that's something that intrigues you, as I said, just join us again on Saturday morning. But right now, I would love to introduce a dear friend and colleague who I would probably never have met had it not been through this company and both of us being involved in it, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. Dr. Hoffman is a traditional naturopath, board certified. She has been in that field for over 22 years. So she brings a wealth of knowledge from her medical background. But what's very unique is that she also sits on the medical professional board for this company, which is a volunteer position. And I love this because it gives her a very unique insight into the actual products and more into the redox space. So she is going to go through a full presentation. And while she does that, we would love for you all to put questions in the chat, because at the end of her presentation, we always go back and make sure we answer all of your questions. Just know that because of how this company decided to bring this to market, not going down a drug path, we are kind of, let's say our hands are tied by some FDA regulations and compliance issues where we cannot address specific disease names. And I say that because I don't want you to think that either of us are trying to avoid answering your questions. It's just that we are bound by compliance to answer in a certain way. So put your questions in there. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hoffman. It is great to be back here after a couple of weeks being gone.
Absolutely. It's super to have you back, Lynn. And I know that you've been moving house, and I hope that that is all going reasonably well. That's never a stress-free existence or experience. But welcome, everyone. I want to thank you for taking your time this evening. My goal is to educate you to the point that I hope by the time we share the information with you, you're going to think this makes sense. That this makes sense for anyone, whether it's any one of those things that Lynn was talking about that may be driving you to learn about this, but I do appreciate your time. It took me about 6 years before I finally was willing to look at the information. I didn't really notice or recognize the significance of what was being shared with me back in 2011. So I didn't really get to do much with it until 2017. But I will say, as I frequently say in presentations when we're talking around the country on this technology, that in over 22 years of being in the industry of natural health, to me, this is the single most influential product technology that I've ever had the privilege of working with. And I hope that I'm going to be able to convey some of that for you. I'm going to share a screen with you, and go ahead and put up some slides so that you can get some visuals on what I'm talking about and not just listen to me, because there's many ways that we take in information. So we're going to talk about how to reset your master switch. Basically, why? Because the one thing that we all need to be able to live our life effectively is a ton of sustained energy, that vitality, and what does that do? It enables the body to maintain health. So I would say put a 1 in the chat bar if that's something that you're interested in, having a super amount of energy and vitality in your life so that you can do the things that you want to do. I start with this because what are we talking about? We're talking about a conversation within the body. We're made up of 70 to 100 trillion cells. Those are made up into different organ systems. So every single one of our organs is made up of a community of cells, just like our towns and our cities are made up of a community of people. Those cells talk within themselves, just like we might walk around the house chatting to ourselves, right? Telling ourselves what the next thing is that we have to do. But they also talk between themselves across the body, and they're telling each other everything that's necessary to make sure that we can make new healthy cells and that we can eliminate the ones that we don't want. When that conversation goes awry, just like any conversation between two human beings, there's something that goes wrong for us in the human body that ends up being sickness of one way or the other. So this is a very foundational process that we're talking about today. We're not really going to be thinking specifically about symptoms, because any symptom that you can name, whether it's an inability to breathe, whether it's a cardiovascular issue, whether it's a bone issue, they are all some examples of conversations going wrong in the cells of that organ system. So we want health in order to be able to exist in a really optimal way. Now, I bring up this photo because it's a beautiful example of exactly what Lynn says, right? I'm always saying that those wrinkles on the outside that man has in the middle, and why he looks so different from the two young ladies that I assume might be his granddaughters on the right and left, are just an example of that oxidative stress, that decay that happens from the inside out. We're very familiar with what that looks like when we have an apple sitting there. It's beautiful and shiny and tight, and then it gradually starts to get a little wrinkly on the outside, and then we see the evidence of all of that oxidative stress that's taken place underneath. That's really the same as the human body having damaged cells that amass till they become a problem. So this field of redox, if you haven't heard of it, don't feel kind of like you've been left out. I still think a majority of the planet has no clue what redox biology is. Our scientists are beginning to lead the field in this area, and doctors are slowly catching up with it. The ones who are ahead are the students being trained. They're actually have areas of redox biology that they are now learning about. But if your doctor is pre-2010 in their graduation, they're probably not going to know the name redox, and certainly won't know that we've managed to stabilize these highly volatile molecules. But redox is basically a contraction, a scientific contraction of the first part of the word reductants and the first part of the word oxidants, and that produces redox. These are positively and negatively charged molecules within every single cell of the human body that become the operating system of us. They're how we function, just in the same way that there's an operating system for our computers. So what are those things that are being made around the ATP production? These oxidants and reductants comprise this essential communication network within the body, the way the body is able to send out an alarm signal when there is a damaged cell and it's been detected. That's the 911 call for trouble here, come and find it. And then the reductants are the response mechanism. I think of those as the fire and rescue system of the human cell. So when we have a damaged cell because of sickness or injury or age or trauma, the cells circulate this signal, this oxidant signaling that says, we got a problem, Houston, come solve the problem, right? And then it's really search and rescue. Out come these reductants following that signal. So the signals need to be loud and clear. And so long as they are loud and clear, the reductants can find the problem. They get in there and they say, do we repair or do we delete and replace? In other words, help the body heal. Well, we hope that they make the healing process their priority. But the cells change with age, that signal changes. And so the fire and rescue, that search and rescue piece becomes more difficult. Birth to puberty, it's amplified very loudly. It's extremely easy for cells to hear when there's a problem. It's quick, fast response that they come in and they get on with the job, and they keep us looking amazing when we're young. If you think about the difference between someone that young and us in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, right? They have a lot of energy. They recover very quickly. If they spend a lot of energy doing things, they don't get exhausted like we do when we're in our 60s. They don't need a day or two to recover from running around all day the previous day. If they fall over, they don't break a bone that easily. They bounce up and they go. If they cut themselves, they heal quickly. And that's because this signaling system is a signal, a 911, and a quick response. And in other words, healing all the time. But with age, and also illness, that redox signaling system is impacted. It begins to shift. And so we have, of course, oxidant signals. In other words, damaged cells are always going to be there. But the response to be able to detect them, find where they are and get in there and do something about them begins to shift. It becomes less efficient, which is why there are an increase in the number of diseases with age and also a loss of vitality. So if you felt like that you have changed since you were 40 and maybe now you're 60, or even that you're beginning to notice it at 40 and that you don't feel quite the way you were at 20, this is what's going on behind. This is the chronological clock that's ticking. Now, why is it changing? Well, because this begins to start this chronological diminishment, this decline from around puberty. Now, we don't really notice that too much when we're young or even in our 20s and 30s, maybe not even until we're 40. It's a bit like a car tank, right? You fill it up with gas. It's always past the fuel point, the full point, and you can drive for quite a while before that needle starts to change. Well, that's really how it is with the energy within our cells, right? We can go for quite a while before we notice that, in fact, we've actually been using that energy. So like a battery, things are getting weaker in our cells and have less energy to donate, which means a lot of things just don't happen properly. Now, redox signals themselves, as I said, they detect damaged cells. They shoot in and they find out how to repair and replace those damaged cells, but they also protect the natural lifespan of a healthy cell. That's absolutely key. It's not just about solving damaged cells, but it's like preserving and making sure that those cells in your eyes can be healthy throughout their lifespan of a few days, that those cells in your bone can be healthy throughout their lifespan, which could be 7 to 10 years. So that every cell has a different lifespan where depending upon where it is. So we want it to be a healthy one whilst it's here. Once it's old, then it needs to be deleted and replaced with another new healthy cell. Why do we know so much about redox? Well, we know so much because back in the 1800s, they kind of knew that there were these very fast changing molecules that they couldn't really identify, didn't have the capacity to do this, but they knew there was something important about what was happening. By the time we move further on to the late 90s, what we have is the first of 6 Nobel Prizes because they discovered that one of those signaling molecules is nitric oxide, and that directly supports cardiovascular health. That redox signaling molecule is what is responsible for dilating blood vessels and keeping our heart healthy. I was working in that field back in the about 2010, actually using nitric oxide with clients, testing levels within their body and helping to rebuild those signals so that they could have better cardiovascular health. But I had no clue that it was called redox. No one was talking about that name at that point. So don't be surprised if you're going to find that other people still don't know that. But that Nobel Prize really was the gate and the door that kind of opened up to this whole area of health science. As a result, if you do the research, you're going to see that worldwide universities are studying this field. Some of them have actually created complete departments directly focused on redox biology, such as Nebraska. There are millions and millions of dollars being awarded for these kinds of research fields in certain places like Cornell and Harvard. So it's a very important area. Why is that? Because in every single cell of the human body, we're making these redox signals. I'll show you an example of why we know that they're literally essential for us to live and to stay healthy. And so they have an influence on everything that goes on, both in how we can protect ourselves to stay healthy, but also science is trying to understand what goes wrong with these signaling messengers and these pathways, and why does that result in disease places. So this is an amazing field. Make sure if you're really interested in science that you go to either the NIH for research on what redox is and what they're doing with it and what they know about it, or the rest of the kind of research you will find on Google Scholar. Not just Google, that's not a research facility. That's just a website place with a lot of misinformation, but real research goes into the Google Scholar field. And you'll find that there's millions and millions of studies now on this field. The reason I wanted to show you this is, as I mentioned, right here we have in August 2016, actual proof and published studies in Free Radical Biology and Medicine that changes in this redox signaling are observed with aging. That's because it starts to shift in puberty, that it's essential for us to have health, and that the longer we stay out of that balance, in other words, as we get older, the more we're promoting the ability to fall into a place of disease. And so that ties into why we see more disease when we're older. But this, to me, if we think about it, means it makes sense, right? It makes sense. If this is essential for us to stay alive, it's essential for us to stay healthy. And the less we have of it and more out of balance, the more likely we are to not have energy or recovery or healing and more disease. And we've got a way to do something about this. Why wouldn't we? That makes sense to me. So that was my kind of mindset once I understood the science behind it. It was like, well, this is a no-brainer, right? This is like eating food. We have to eat if we want to survive. We have to have redox if we want to survive. So if I can replace it, I'm going to do something about it. But what's the challenge, and why is science still looking at its mechanisms within the body as opposed to actually producing any kind of product-related outcome? They haven't made a drug based on redox, and the field has yet to understand that this scientific challenge of how do you take highly volatile molecules, signaling molecules that really are created and used as fast as that sparkler. All right, how do you take something that's that quick, and that's what they noticed in this 1800s, something that changes so fast? How do you get hold of that? How do you stabilize that outside the human body if it's this volatile within the cells? And so everyone believed that that was not a possibility. And so we're going to talk about the breakthrough in science in being able to actually find how to stabilize these signaling molecules outside of the body and move from a space of being a 10-minute lifespan to actually not simply 12 months and then 15 months, but now 21 months. So we can actually have these signaling molecules kind of like in suspension, suspended animation, ready to go to work on us and help us rebuild these essential cell signaling mechanisms. And so this is from 10 years of patented research that was going on in the public field. And so what they've been able to do is to work out, what do the cells do? Well, the cells take the water within the human cell, which is saline, and the mitochondria is going to produce ATP plus these reductants and oxidants. And it basically breaks apart the 4 components of saline. What is that? Well, it's sodium, which is 2 molecules, sodium and chloride. And then we have the other part of saline, which is water. And what is that? Well, that's hydrogen and oxygen. So we have 4 molecules that are split apart within the mitochondria and reorganized. It's like a molecular version of Scrabble. And I've got 4 letters, and how many words can I make out of it? And that's what's going on in our cells. We managed to find out how to do exactly what our cells can do. We can't do it as fast as the cells do. That's in a nanosecond within the human body. But now we've moved from what would have taken us around 3 days originally back in 2009 to being able to create this process and lock off these stabilized redox signaling molecules in 16 hours. That's a game changer. And so we take this pure salt and water and we move it through different stages of purification. We're actually replicating what the mitochondria is doing by putting different frequencies in there and splitting those atoms and then reorganizing them. So it's kind of a magic. So what we have in that blue bottle is exactly what's in us. And so that becomes quite an amazing opportunity to do something for your own health. This is where the magic happens. This is the FDA registered facility in Utah. This is the only place in the world that the supply of redox signaling molecules that goes out from this location to every customer in 34 countries in the world. This is the only place it's made. We have 7 patents and actually about 1,000 trade secrets. I've got a typo there. And it is highly protected. So you're seeing places where the saline solution is moved from one tank to the other as different elements of those trade secrets take place to make the magic. It's third-party guaranteed. I would recommend that you don't buy it on anything that's a third-party website out there. We police what's out there. It's not legally allowed to be sold. A lot of it is tampered. It has been expired. It's been mishandled. They drill bottles. They empty it. They fill it with other things. And so you don't want to get it from there. You want to make sure that you're getting it from this facility in a fresh form with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you've been invited to the call, your friend will be able to help you get exactly the same product that they're getting. So this is, as I said, the first and only cell signaling supplement to this day, because we are involved in chemistry and science and not materials, in other words, not physical substances. There is no way that anyone has been able to reverse engineer what we have. This product goes through rigorous medical grade production. It meets third-party testing in overseas facilities. And so that's a guarantee that what we're purchasing is exactly what we say, redox signaling molecules. So if you read somewhere on the non-research website of Google that this is salt water, then they fail to understand the science, the multi-million-dollar science and years of patents behind this that takes the saline that's in our cells and does the same thing as the body to create these redox signaling molecules. So how do I know that these molecules are going to do anything? Well, we have really a cool way of being able to test it out. I would encourage you to do this for yourself in the same way that I did it with my clients. So although we drink the original redox liquid, which is in that blue bottle that I mentioned, it took about 5 years for the company to work out, because of the complexity of these signaling molecules, how do we actually take that liquid and put it into something you can apply to the skin, because everybody was spraying it on the skin because it was giving so many wonderful benefits. But of course, that gets a little messy. It's really nice to have something you can just put on the skin that's a natural solution. So they came up with something called Renew 28. Let me get it in the right place there. It's actually an anti-aging benefit, but it has this really cool property that helps us get a real sense of how fast signaling molecules go to work on a human body. And this is what I did, and I would encourage you, if you're here this evening and you have anything that hurts, or maybe you've got something that's not moving and is not as mobile as you would like it to be, perhaps your fingers are a lot stiffer than they should be, your stiff neck or back, shoulders that don't move, or knees that have got too creaky, anything that hurts, I would encourage you to rate that level of discomfort. Go check it out. If you can't walk the stairs too much, find out how many you can walk before it becomes too uncomfortable, and rate that level of discomfort on a 0 to 10. Then take the gel and shake it, because it is largely the liquid with a limited amount of a silica clay in there, which you can see is totally clear. And what that does is it's just enough to suspend the liquid in an application. And we want you to put it onto the area that's hurting. It's actually already working the moment it contacts you, because this is about cell-to-cell communication through organic matter. We are organic. So I want you to apply it 3 times in 5 minutes. This is what I asked my clients whenever anyone came in. I was like trying to work out, did I want this? How useful was it? Was there a place for it in my practice? And so I did this, and I said, I'm trying out a new product. Could you give me some feedback if I knew that they had something that hurt? So we would rate each person, and we would put it on 3 times in 5 minutes, and then wait 5 minutes, and then re-rate. Now, whether that was bending something, go back and do the same thing that hurt you the first time, or was limited, and compare. I think you'd probably be as surprised as I was, right? You might say, if you go to a pain management clinic in the hospital, and 50% of the people that they see get better, they consider that successful. Here was what was really curious to me, was it didn't make any difference whether I was working with someone who had a very severe hip issue that was about to be replaced the following day, or congested sinuses, or really severe head discomfort and might want to get into the dark or take medication, or a broken toe that came into my clinic and a lot of discomfort. They were looking for some pain meds from their regular doctor. And we went through this process. What I found was that it didn't make any difference what the issue was. Everyone could notice a difference in that level of discomfort, or that inability to move as easily as they had before. Sometimes it went from a level 8 to a 0 in a couple of minutes, which is pretty astounding because it's not an analgesic. Or it was, a 9 to a 4, or a 7 to a 3. But what's the purpose of that? The purpose was, for me, to build my belief on what had I got my hands on. And so if you're curious about this, it might take you certainly a lot longer than 10 minutes to notice that this is working. So I encourage people to go use a lot of this, and go find some friends and put it on there, and just kind of play around and see, what your friends' experiences are. Dr. Silverman had recommended that I do that to be able to see for myself why this was so important for my clients. And it wasn't just, a few people that got a benefit. It was literally everybody who saw some kind of benefit. This is a short-term, quick example of the fact that your body's going to take those signaling communicators, and it's going to start going to work and help your body restart some of those conversations that may have become slowed down. As I mentioned, it's actually a skincare product. We have 2 studies, one in States and one in Germany, on this, a 28-day study. And as you can see, pretty remarkable results on the right-hand side. Take a look at that 16% skin cell renewal. What does that actually mean? It means we're anti-aging, right? Our skin is looking 16% younger in a month because the skin cells are turning over much faster. By the time we've hit 50, instead of being a 28-day turnover, those skin cells are going to slow down to about a 90-day turnover. That's why we look very different from someone who's so much younger. So if you want to turn the clock back, here's the first thing you should be doing, right? Using that on your face morning and evening, and anywhere else you have skin. There's pretty a large amount of it since it's our largest organ. But, you know, some pretty incredible things. What I think is so astonishing, this has 4 ingredients, and it doesn't have a long list of all these things that you can't pronounce that are toxic and really bad for the skin. This is really rejuvenating right at the cellular level, not simply on the surface level, but getting right to the bottom of things. I want to show you, this was really my first guinea pig, actually, that eventually made me take this product into my office, was my husband, who had a long-term injury under his rib that would play out from time to time. He managed to re-injure it. It was hurting him a great deal, and I remembered that I had one of these tubes, and so we did exactly that. I said, oh, you can be my guinea pig. There's a way to use this that's supposed to help things that hurt change in under 10 minutes. Let's see, right? And so we went through the 3 times in 5 minutes, and it definitely changed his level of discomfort. That's why I started to take it into my office, because now I wanted to try on a few more people and see if it did the same thing. You know how we're always skeptical when something changes quickly, and it's like, yeah, really? It seems like it's too good to be true. So that was kind of why. But this is one of the reasons that athletes love it, because it's so impactful on keeping muscles flexible and comfortable and allowing them to recover very quickly, and enabling them to be able to perform and practice a lot more frequently than they would do without it. Certainly avoids all the ibuprofen and such like. But here's the other reason. They started doing studies at Appalachian Human Performance Labs down in North Carolina on the impact of redox signaling on athletes. But one of the studies that predicated this was when they put mice on redox for 7 days, having already run them on their little machines to see how far they'd run without redox. They gave them redox and then reran the studies. And what happened was that the mice ran 29% longer on the ASEA. No cheese involved, they just ran, right? So, you know, there wasn't that there was any great incentive there for them, other than that it really made them curious that these animals now had so much more endurance and a faster recovery. That application has translated into Olympic athletes using this product, weekend warriors, anyone who wants to simply be athletic, right? It's going to help your increased endurance because you're getting more energy in the cells, faster recovery, because that's what redox does, right? It helps us heal and repair quicker. Also provides much sharper mental acuity. Who couldn't do with that, right? This is the most important thing, command central. We got to think. So if you want sharper mind, better energy, faster recovery, we're not saying you have to suddenly become an Olympic athlete, but it's certainly a beneficial reason that all of us would use this. Now, my journey, having started with the liquid, with the gel with my husband, then moved to the curiosity over the liquid. He'd been plagued for about 22 years with not being able to exercise and breathe adequately. We tried everything possible in a 22-year period, and I never managed to get him off all of these assistive technologies. Sometimes the things would get awry and we'd end up at the ER, and we found that those bills were about $13,000 a year just for those visits, let alone anything else. So I put him on the liquid at 4 ounces a day for about a week, and I could see that he seemed to be moving a lot more quickly and easily. And I had listened to a lot of stories that talked about the magic 8, in other words, doubling up and saturating the body a little quicker. And it seems to have a bigger and quicker impact on the body, because that makes sense. It's like, what do you call it? Like a lightning charger for an iPhone, right? We're recharging those batteries lightning speed. So I said to him, suggested we'll double up and just see what you're going to do with this. And it was really remarkable. Again, this was my second example of maybe too good to be true, because at the end of that first week of feeling a little better, And being on the 8 ounces, he decided to engage in a project that suddenly got put on our laps, and he was the only one available. Now, if you've ever had a problem and it's gone away and you forget that you had a problem, right? So you engage in something that you weren't doing before. And that was him, like, I can climb these trees, I can do all of this stuff. And quietly, I was thinking, we'll probably be in the ER before lunch. But what happened was he ended up being able to work for the whole day, didn't touch any of the assistive technologies, and I knew that this was really something pretty remarkable, and now I knew I had to understand a lot more about it. At the same time, I had a client that was referred to me who had 3 co-infections, and over a 30-year period had really been struggling with her health. She couldn't work, had every co-infection that you could think of. And as I started to read a lot more and try to understand why my husband had had this big shift very quickly, I started to wonder if this might be the missing link for her. She'd done lots and lots and lots of different things, like probably many of you on the call, right? You've done CBD, and you've done juices, and you've done vitamins and minerals and oils, whatever you name, trying to find solutions. And I suggested to her that she might want to try this for 3 months before she came to see me, because I had a feeling that maybe this was the missing link that would help things kind of connect and work better. I said to her, you do what you want, but I'm going to suggest you try this for 3 months and see. You may not need to come and see me if it does what I think it might do. I did not expect to predict exactly what happened. Within 30 days, this woman had had a 90% shift in all of those challenges. And to this day, she's back working in her life, doing the things that engage her instead of being at home, unable to participate. This was my second experience of like, okay, this again, one thing that seems to make such an impact, but why? It does feel like it's too good to be true, but I found that it wasn't. I love to show people the clinical studies. This is an example of some of that data that I showed you on the skincare, the changes in wrinkles and elasticity and fine lines and being able to calm the face down. Examples, as I reminded you, that we have skin everywhere, so apply it wherever you want to have those benefits. It also soothes irritation. That's what redox does. Redox is the mechanism within the body that controls inflammation, keeps it under control. So therefore, it is really beneficial to be using this. Studies that we also do on the redox actually shows some really significant improvements. If you haven't heard of glutathione, this is your master antioxidant in the human body. When you drink a ASEA, it actually increases the efficacy of it by 800%. That's a colossal change. We have these studies where we also improve the quantity by 60% out of Western Australia just at the end of last year. And those 2 statistics alone, for me, are, again, it makes common sense. This is your master antioxidant. It is the thing that is connected to either being healthy or experiencing as many as 52 known diseases. And the older we are, the less we have of this. And so that's another reason why we tend to be sicker when we're older. It would be worth that alone if that was the only thing it was going to do. But it does amazing things like improving cell signaling to know when old and unhealthy cells need to be killed off, what we call apoptosis. And we've got a recent study on our C. elegans, which is showing a 15% increase in longevity in those cells that they're studying with the little worms that they use. So we're going to be excited to see how that plays out for us, but I think I can show you examples of what that looks like. We have a gene study that is pretty remarkable. For an 8-week study with healthy 35-year-olds, their genetic signaling was already turning off pre the study. But 100% of them that were put on the 8 ounces of ASEA Redox had this uniform, sustained, and beneficial improvement in 5 gene signaling pathways, as much as 20 to 31% improvement. Now, you don't have to be sick to need to have a healthy immune system and a healthy inflammatory signaling response. Those are foundational for everyone. Now, whether you're sick or whether you're healthy or whether you're young or whether you're old, that needs to be strong. Your stress resilience in your cells needs to be at peak. That's what defends us against bacteria and viruses and environmental toxins. But if you've got challenges with cardiovascular health or gut health or hormone signaling, you're going to also see improvements in that. And interestingly, the placebo group, who were just drinking the plain saline, that salt water that so often is talked about, had a 0% response with genetic signaling. Those are very, very unusual results. But basically what it means is it affects everyone. Everyone has this improvement benefit going on. Now, genes are like opening a door that has a cascade effect and affects all sorts of other things by turning on and off switches. Here's an example of the inflammatory signaling pathway. Just pay attention to what's in blue, because if that is a problem for you, then that pathway is not signaling as efficiently as it should do. So if those are things that affect your life, think about what it would be like and how you could maybe feel a lot better if you could switch back on and actually get those genes to signal more efficiently again by being on this signaling mechanism. You'll notice that really important things like diabetes has been written up by Dr. James Watson as being a redox deficiency. I mentioned that redox signaling molecules regulate every single cell of the human body, therefore they affect every single body system. There is nothing that does not get affected by a redox signaling. So we are looking very differently. Rather than doing supplements with a specific material supplement for your liver or for your heart or for your stomach, we're actually going right to how the cells function, the operating system of the human body. And this is a very different global way. Some of the other things that I've seen when we can fix the cell and help it have more energy and signal more efficiently is changes, for example, with my chiropractor, who is also a functional nutritional chiropractor, does a lot of nutritional work with every client, but had a long-term skin issue. Not only did his skin issue change, but over time, this is the early photo, he actually ended up having a lot of his gray hair change. A client of mine in the center there who was struggling with her hair falling out and thyroid challenges. She was on a lot of medication that they weren't willing to alter. We worked over time. Now, hormones are tricky. They don't change in a month or even 3 months. They take longer. There's a lot of moving parts to balancing hormones. But over 9 to 10 months, we were able to get her to the point where her doctors decided that she didn't need to be on any more medication. Her hair grew back. You can see there how pretty she is. And she continues to send me her updates every year as she remains medication-free. Our other friend at the right there, locally, his love in his 70s was to skydive. And he had a mobility issue on his foot, and he was losing a lot of energy and was constantly feeling like he could never do anything except fall asleep all day. And his life turned around entirely. Not only did his mobility change, but his energy came back and he's back skydiving and participating in his life. So how can you use the redox technology? What does it look like overall? Well, the redox liquid is our powerhouse that's going to bio-replenish every cell. The Renew 28 is twice as concentrated as, again, for applications on your skin or for things that ache or hurt or itch or bites or cuts, anything like that. The Renew Advanced is twice as concentrated as the Renew 28. That's for fine lines and wrinkles. Different mechanism for suspending the liquid here. And our latest and probably one of our most popular products is the Redox Clay Mask. After 3 years of working on that particular product development, we were able to find a special kind of bentonite that wouldn't activate those redox molecules, but have this incredibly powerful way of drawing redox into the system, refining the cells, pulling out the junk, tightening the skin up. And of course, it's wonderful for all those anti-aging benefits. But some of our athletes are actually using it on sore muscles because the bentonite clay really pulls the redox in more deeply and benefits them. Now, broadening the circle out of redox science, we look at how do we impact cells to create particular redox reactions that are targeted for specific outcomes that we're looking for. The powders on the left are a beautiful way to be able to feel redox reactions within 15 to 30 minutes, which is not what you're going to feel with the liquid. You're rebuilding the signals in a different way. And the yellow packet is to target and turn on additional redox within the cells for more energy. The red one is to sharpen the mind and the focus and the response time. The blue one is to be able to calm the mind, take down the anxiety, the overwhelm, the stress that's going on in our life, and be able to function in a calm manner. Those three you can drink together or singly up to 3 times a day. You can drink them cold or warm, and you just pop them in water and they're ready to go. The blue one, the purple one, or the lavender one, is really a phenomenal product. It's a vegan, a plant-based vegan collagen formulation. In other words, the complete matrix of amino acids that allows the body to make not just type 1 collagen or type 3, which is what you're going to see in most products on the market, but it is the building blocks that allows the body to actually manufacture all of the collagens that we need in the human body. The five of them are the most typical, but the body makes as many as 28. So it's not a limiting product with where you're just feeding the specific collagen from 1 or 2 mechanisms. That one you just do once a day. And then we support skin health through the basis of science, published science, on how the connection between redox signaling in the skin and aging. And lastly, we partner all of that energy, that labor that's available to make use of the food that we eat and the supplements that we consume with these organic, non-GMO, whole food supplement products. And with the exception of omega, which does come from fish, these are also vegan, and so they're foundational. I'm not going to go through them tonight. There's too much information about them, but whoever's invited you can give you the full product information sheets on those. So how would you saturate your cells? Well, 4 ounces a day is a pretty typical amount, but you will find if you're drinking that, 10 to 15% of people are going to feel something within that first week. We ask everybody to benchmark everything about your health. But I mentioned, you might take a week to see something about this, and you may be in the group that doesn't see anything, but you certainly can feel it quickly with this. If you haven't seen anything shift, we often suggest super saturating. Remember, kind of fast charging those cells by doing 8 ounces a day until you can see what you're looking for. But at 4 ounces a day, we will see at the 30-day mark about 50% of people are beginning to see those changes they're looking for. By the time we get to 90 days, we know that 90% of people are really super excited with outcomes. And that's because you're charging up more cells, you've got more energy in there, you've got louder amplification, you've got a lot more work going on that can help redeem those things that the body has slowed down in. Everything comes with that 30-day money-back guarantee. So I want to ask you you can look at your product purchasing options through the person that invited you. We have different ways that you can get hold of this product straight from the facility and different package benefits that are there, and you can discuss those and find what suits you best. So make sure that you speak to the person with you. I wanted to show you that we might not see aging that quickly in some ways, but we are changing things immediately when we look at the studies on genes and blood serum markers. It's happening within all of us. I think this is how we think of aging, right? We look and feel better when we're younger, and we know that those wrinkles change with time, and we look and feel worse as we get older. That's what every doctor's going to tell you, right? You're just getting older. But I want to show you that when we recharge those cells, that actually this is a real example of Rosie, who at 84 started on this product thanks to her son. The second photo here is her 7 weeks later. We always say take photos because although she knew she felt better, she didn't think she looked any different until he showed her the photo. This is her at 87, I believe, and this one is her at 91. The reason I started out by saying this is the single most influential product I've ever had, I have no single product that could take somebody at 84, move them to 91 and make them look at least 10 years younger. I just don't. There is no single capsule or anything that will do this because nothing else does what this product does. We're going right to how our cells function, the very foundation of life. And that is a whole different frontier in how you can take charge of your own health and influence your outcome. If you want more information, we have Real Redox Results as a Facebook group that you can be invited to. We have Real Redox Results, lots of interviews and examples of outcomes. DiscoverRedox.com also has a beautiful section on every product that we have. Dr. Silverman has the GettingYoungerClub.com, and there's loads of resources here. So don't hesitate to ask for those. I'm going to move over to Lynn, and we're going to talk about the influence of Verdis Norton, that intersection moment between science saying, this is impossible, you'll never stabilize this outside the human body, and Verdis's remarkable decision, that puts us where we're at in terms of the culture. So Lynn, I'm going to let you take over that amazing story.
I would love to, because it was Verdis's vision that I'm not sure a lot of people would have had. When he came across this technology, he was actually doing some consulting for a small biotech company that had this liquid. They were having great results. They thought they were creating a drug, working with the FDA. So they spent millions in safety studies and looking at very specific diseases, and ran out of money. And they had contacted him to see if he could get some investors. And when they couldn't, they started to sell off pieces. But when he was sitting on their board, they had given him some. And he was he was 68, 69 at the time. He was starting to see some benefits. So he intuitively knew they had come across something very special. And he put his own team of investors together. He bought the technology. He hired a whole new team of scientists and said, figure out what this is and let's get it stabilized. And while they were doing that, he got a focus group of people together. These were, friends, family members, church members, people with varying levels of health conditions. Some very extreme, who had been told to get their affairs in order, and some less extreme. And they had access to this liquid. So while that was going on in the background, his scientists stabilized it. They realized it was redox molecules. And for him, it was a business play. He was a strategist and was well known in the Fortune 50 world. So he got in touch with some of his colleagues at some pharmaceutical companies, told them what they had done. And one in particular flew out their scientists, flew out their CEO, looked at all of his data, looked at all the previous companies' data, and said, we want this. However, all those people that you have on this product, including you and your family, you have to come off it. This is not going to be publicly available. And at that moment, he had found out that, all these people in his focus group were doing better. And then those 6 people that were extremely ill seemed to be thriving. And he told them, he said, ethically, morally, I just can't do that. I can't take this away from people who this has helped so greatly. And he was told by the pharmaceutical company, basically, if you want this money, and it was big money, it was generational wealth. If you want this money, you have to walk away. And I don't know what any of us would do in that situation, but he just said, you know what, ethically, morally, I can't do that. And he walked away from that. And that's when, at the age of 69, he was retired. He decided to found this company that we now know as Avicea, and bring this to market, because he felt this would be his legacy to humanity. He was that convicted, and he just knew in his heart that this was different than anything that had ever been out there and could really help every single person. So he started to look at how he could bring it to market. And it didn't make sense to put it on a shelf, because, as Dr. Carolyn shared, it says sodium chloride and water on it. And we've all been trained to look at ingredients. So if you see salt water on something, most people are like, why would I buy salt water? I can mix it up in my kitchen, right? And it even says redox certified, but redox is not a household name yet. I think we are heading in that direction. I know we will get there. And so when he was exploring things, he decided on word of mouth marketing, network marketing. But he knew when he made that decision that, that network marketing industry didn't have the most stellar reputation. And he wanted to ensure that ASEA would be different, that it would raise the bar and be more of a next level marketing company. And so the ethos that was created that day that he turned down that offer still runs deep through this company. This is a company, and I know Caroline had that on one of the slides, that values people and purpose and principles over ego and over economics. They cultivate relationships. It's all about cultivating and serving the people in front of you. It's not a transactional thing. They also believe that, you know, being convicted about what you're doing is much more important than just trying to convince someone to try this. And that's why things like tonight are so important, and why your friend wanted you to come. It's all about education. And that ethos that was born when he turned down that check, I have watched it grow stronger over the past 10 and a half years that I have been with this business. And for me, I think the ethos and the people behind this are just as important as these life-changing products that ASEA has. And so I'm always grateful that we have just a few minutes on Tuesday nights to talk a little bit about that. There's a lot more out there on the ethos. Ask the person that invited you, because we're always happy to share that. But this is a company of people who are just passionate about making an impact in the world and have a lot of fun doing it. So I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I did see a bunch of questions come through. So Carolyn, I'm going to turn this back over to you. You're muted.